If you're on YouTube, you've seen this man's interviews more than you've seen this man. Mm-hmm. So this is the first time I'm actually putting eyeballs on you. And I don't know anyone who doesn't know about Vlad and DJ Vlad and Vlad TV on the YouTube. So let me welcome him to us right here, live in person, the CEO of VladTV.com, Vlad.
What's up?
Hey, Vlad.
Thank you for having me.
Vladimir. All right, Vladimir, where are you from?
I was born in the Ukraine.
Okay.
What used to be Russia at the time.
Right.
Yeah.
How long did you spend there?
A few years. I was like 4 years old when I moved
Do you
to the
remember
US.
it?
A few scattered memories here and there.
Okay.
Not so much.
Do you still speak it?
Somewhat.
Okay, because that's important. That's
Yeah.
important. So you come to this country and I guess you go to school.
Yeah.
You're raised and all that. When do you get into this space? Like, how do we know about you? Why do we know about you?
Well, I started out as a DJ, as a mixtape DJ.
Like turntables, techniques, the whole thing, the mixer.
Yeah, but mostly on the mixtape side. So like my projects, I had a big project called Tupac Rap Phenomenon that won like mixtape of the year, and won all the awards and so forth at the time. And then, I was starting to get a little older and realized I wasn't going to keep being able to just do clubs, for the rest of my life. So I started transitioning to video. Started out doing some documentaries.
What was the first documentary that we might remember?
First documentary was called Ghost Ride the Whip. It was a documentary about the Bay Area music scene, the hyphy movement. Then I did an episode of American Gangster for BET on Mac Dre and the Romper Room Gang, which kind of tied into that first documentary. And then I produced, it's called Kiss and Tale. It was about Corinne Steffens, who you know very well. That came out on Showtime for a while. And then, I transitioned, like when I saw YouTube start to become a real business, I kind of dropped everything I was doing and just focused 100% on
When
that.
did you know? Okay, so you grew up on the West Coast.
Grew up in the Bay Area.
Okay, all right. And so I'm always fascinated by this. People come here. I've said this many, many times. 70% of rap music is purchased by white people, white boys, in fact, right? And the culture that we have created is mostly ingested and purchased by people outside of our community who somehow are enamored, particularly by the most degenerate of it. Like, y'all not purchasing the conscious rap. You're not purchasing Jadena as much as you are that after Police and all, so back then.
It depends on the time, right? Because at one point, Public Enemy was the hottest thing, smoking.
Right. Okay. Do you understand that phenomenon and what drew you to it? Because from Ukraine, it's not the Ukraine, it's Ukraine, right? Mm-hmm. From Ukraine, you're not immersed. That's not part of your culture.
Well, I was 4.
I know, but you come here, you're in the Bay Area.
I come in, yeah.
Why not gravitate to the other, folk from that area?
Well, the area that I grew up in had no Russian people. I was the only Russian kid. And you got to understand that during that time, it was the height of the Cold War. So I was looked at like the Antichrist, during the time. And there was literally no other Russians anywhere. And hip hop was starting to sort of make its way to the West Coast. This was like the early 80s. So I just fell in love with it early. I became a breakdancer during that time. And I started getting into the old, like, Run DMC's first album and The Message by Melly Mel, and as well as all the West Coast underground, the stuff that was like electropop stuff, like Egyptian Lover and
I remember that.
That type of thing. Yeah. And it just became a lifelong love that's still going, hard today.
Okay, now let's just Thrive Thursday. I want to get into the business because there's so many people, and I'm just now trying to understand it myself, that are making bank. The first person that hit me to this was Sway, actually. Sway, Calloway. It's like, okay, this is the space. When did you know? Because you said when I started understanding that YouTube. What was the precursor to that? What was the thing that made you go, hey, I can make a living doing this YouTube thing?
The money, actually. In 2008, YouTube started its partner program. Before then, YouTube was just a free upload service that people just uploaded. I had a couple of videos on there. And I didn't take it seriously because I had to make a living. But then in 2008, they introduced a partner program. And one of the guys that was at YouTube that was heading that program was actually a fan of my mixtapes. So he kind of got me on board really early.
What did he say? Because this is the stuff that we don't hear.
Yeah.
Yo, Vlad, we about to do something that you can get paid.
No, it was really, I'd heard about it, and then someone I knew him, and he was already a fan of my mixtape, so it was an easy introduction. So he got me on that program really early. And I instantly saw the vision of where YouTube is going to go and how big it's going to get. So I knew that this was the future. So I was
what
already.
was the strategy? Because again, everything is a system,
Yeah.
you know, and this is what we talk about quite frequently here.
Mm-hmm.
So did you go home and then draw out a blueprint of this first step?
Sort
I'm
of.
going to do this.
Sort of.
Then, so what did that look like?
Well, I didn't mention this one step before. Before I started doing YouTube, I was doing DVDs with similar types of content, like street DVDs. When Smack was kind of a big thing, I was putting out my own versions of DVDs called Hot in Here DVDs, where I'd interview different artists and, kind of mix it in music videos and so forth. So I was already interviewing artists and already in the mix, and being a DJ, I kind of had my relationship. So I said, okay, I could take these interviews and put them on YouTube. And I bet you that if I put up a new clip every single day, that I would start to really build a big following over time. And everyone thought it was silly back then. Like every day, a new video, that's too much. No one's going to watch that. But I understood that, the internet audience was a 24/7, 365 worldwide audience. So
And
there's
at
no
that
way.
time, we were still in a kind of, you watch the 6 o'clock news,
Yeah.
you watch Jeopardy at 7,
Yeah.
your TV show comes on at this time, and TiVo was just now becoming a
Yeah, DVR was kind of there. And I just realized that you can't flood the internet. You can't put too much content out. So if I kept putting out good content and I kept doing it every day over and over and over again, 365 days a year, that eventually I would win. And 11 years later, it was I'm essentially doing the same thing, just at a higher quantity.
every day. So
Yeah, Saturday, Sundays, holidays, Christmas, New Year's.
okay, so you know how to
everything.
edit video. So what are your skills?
I technically know how to do that, but I haven't touched that in many years. I have a large staff.
But when you started,
When I started, I did everything. And that's actually where the style of me being behind the camera started out, because I was holding the camera doing the interview. And then I would go home, edit the video, and then I would upload it, and then I would market it and send out email blasts and contact other sites to try to get them to pick up my videos. And after a while, I was able to afford 1 employee, and then 2 employees, and now 10 employees, and so forth.
How long in? Because I just told my students today that wisdom is time. Knowledge it accumulates over time, and you don't want to rush that process. You want to.
Yeah.
What was the time period between I'm putting up videos every day, there's now this program that allows me to make money, and now I'm actually making enough money to hire the first person? How long did that take?
First it was just interns, and then it was like, hey, I could.
Back in the day when you didn't have to pay interns, because today you got to pay.
And I can tell you that sometimes, there's a timing thing. I kind of launched this whole company in kind of like the depths of the recession. So there was lots of talented people that were around that were willing to work cheap because they were losing their jobs.
There's that recession word again.
Yeah. So maybe about a year or 2 into it, I was able to kind of start formulating the company, hiring employees, and then.
So it took a year before you started to see.
At least a year, yeah. At least a year. And
but you didn't stop at any point during that year and say, this may not be worth it?
Nah. I saw the vision of it all. I saw the vision. I knew that this was going to surpass everything else. Because, listen, some people have Netflix. Some people have Hulu. Some people have cable. Some people have DirecTV. Some people have Spotify. Some people have all these paid services. But everyone has YouTube. This is why Vlad TV is so big, in the streets, because it's free and everyone has it. It's every single person has access to it, no matter what. And I knew that right away. This was just it was a blueprint for the future.
When did you get your millionth person? Do you remember that? Was that was that on your vision board to get 1 million?
No, I didn't really put out numbers like that. It was just we have now 3.5 million subscribers.
So what was the number? Was it 100,000 that made it this is the next level? Was it 250,000?
No, because it's all kind of ongoing, right? It's just a ball that keeps accumulating, and
like compound interest.
Yeah, exactly. It builds on top of itself. We have 15,000 clips now on the website, and most of those clips are getting views every single day. Some more than others, or sometimes when something happens or
like Nipsey Hussle recently, you had that.
Yeah,
when
so
he was
all
murdered,
of our old Nipsey Hussle interviews are doing well, or people talking about Nipsey Hussle, or or just whatever happens. We have Wiz Khalifa from 11 years ago. We have a lot of people.
Wow.
So some people become superstars, and we're the first interviews they do. And it becomes like, like really my goal is that to try to capture history of hip hop, as well as actors and sports and so forth of this time that I'm here, because I understand that what I leave behind will be viewed for hundreds of years after I'm gone. So I'm trying to leave behind, like I think we have more interviews, especially with hip hop legends, than anybody else. But I think we have more hip hop interviews than anybody else. I mean, we literally put out now 6 clips a day, 365 days a year, plus a flashback and a full interview sometimes and so forth. I don't think anyone puts out that level of quantity.
So you have other people doing the videotaping now.
Oh yeah, I have camera people, I have video editors, I have writers, I have an assistant.
You have a whole industry
over the last. I have lawyers, I have a bunch of people. Yeah,
definitely the lawyers. What are the pitfalls? With the downside of doing this. What are the mistakes that you made that if you could do over?
I don't think there's any like mistakes that I feel I would do over. The reality of what I do is that, like when I got into this, I realized that hip hop media has always just been very softball. It's always been more just PR. Artists would come in and they would just be asked very easy questions. No one would dig into their backgrounds. No one would cover the uncomfortable topics. And I really looked up to 60 Minutes and I saw the effect of what happens when you really go hard in interviews. So that's what I did. And, it ruffles a lot of feathers. I have lots of people who love me. I have people who hate me. I have people that never want to come back and do another Vlad TV interview. I have people who constantly come back and do more interviews. Right. So it's one of those things. You're
asking questions. So
I'm asking hard questions, uncomfortable questions. A great interview is not supposed to be comfortable.
All right, give me the most uncomfortable interview you've done.
Uncomfortable interview?
Yeah, for you. Where you thought you were just asking a question and it went left.
Left? I interviewed recently, I won't say this went left at all, but I interviewed Keefe D recently. He was the last surviving member of the car that shot up Tupac's car in Las Vegas. He's the uncle of Orlando Anderson. And, I'm speaking to someone who is involved in some really crazy stuff. And, to try to pull that information out while talking to someone who's kind of hated,
right.
worldwide, and you're talking about very sensitive topics. It was a tough interview to get through.
Okay, so but you got through it. Nobody got hurt.
I've gone through all
craziest interview you ever did that to this day you're like, I can't believe.
Craziest. Yeah. I interviewed Bankroll Fresh. He was the guy who was involved in. No, I'm sorry. I said that wrong. I interviewed No Plug, who was involved in the killing of Bankroll Fresh. And in that interview, he's kind of smiling and kind of making light of it. And,
And he's not in jail?
Well, it was self-defense. He was shot at first. And ultimately video came out afterwards, that was released by Atlanta PD that showed Bankroll Fresh with like an AK-47.
Wow.
With like an assault rifle kind of waving it around, and then boom, the shooting, and shows him shooting first. It was an uncomfortable interview. A lot of people were still mad over that interview.
What are they mad about?
That I gave someone a platform.
And what of that? Like I'm very conscious about what I do here, right? Mm-hmm. In terms of who I talk about. I'm even on a 30-day fast of negativity as far as it relates to Black people only. So that means that I could say some stuff about other people because I think that there's power in images, right? Mm-hmm. Birth of a Nation, I talk about this, how powerful that piece of propaganda to this day we're living out.
The original.
The original. Yeah. The original. Not enough people saw Nate Parker's Birth of a Nation for us to have a discussion about it, and that's a damn shame because it was a powerful movie.
Good movie.
But propaganda or images and how things are shaped, right? Mm-hmm. Impact the future, impact us and how we're treated and all this other stuff. So that's important. Do you bear any responsibility?
Absolutely. I understand the ramifications of what I do, and I try to create a balancing act whenever I can. This is why I bring on people like Matthew Knowles to talk about.
That's a balancing act?
To talk about investing and talk about money management. I bring in people like Grant Cardone, who is a billionaire from commercial real estate. He breaks down how to invest. I brought in Malcolm X's daughter, Laura
Which
Jamal.
one? Ilyasa?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. I brought in, members of the Nation of Islam. I brought in, Lord Jamar is a regular guest on the show, so you have the whole 5%, ideology in that. And yeah, I try to balance it the best I can. But the reality is that being the type of outlet that I am, it's not just always going to be just positivity.
Okay.
And and also when I bring in more of like the gangster type figures, I try to focus on this is why you don't want to do this. The non-glorification of it. Like this is okay, you balled out for a couple of years and this is doing 30 years in prison because of this, and now you're out, and explain why you do not want to go down the same path.
Well, I mean, you, World Star, Shade Room, and others, TMZ to a lesser extent because it's rebranding itself in a different kind of way. I think is there a moral responsibility? I know you're saying there's a balance, but if you contributed, I said, BET, Bob Johnson contributed to the desecration of 3 generations of Black people with the content that he put out on BET for all those years. I feel very strongly about that, right? And then when I look at these outlets, I feel like just because kids want candy and cookies for breakfast doesn't mean that you give it to them.
Right.
Where's the responsibility? And it's not just a balancing, but at some point, if the things that you're putting out actually inspires people, because while you say there's a cautionary tale here, it's why I backed away actually from Corinne Steffens, because we came into that relationship with her saying, oh, this was really, something that I never, we're going to paint this kind of picture. It was supposed to be a cautionary tale. If you read that first book, it opens up in a certain way.
I read it. I've interviewed her.
Right. And then after it was out, Homegirl was like, oh. And I don't know if that was always the plan because she's a very brilliant, smart woman.
Very much so.
But I'm like, I can't participate.
Yeah.
So take my name off. Let's, I'm, got out. But, that to me, like, there's a responsibility once a person shows you their intent.
Yeah. I don't think anyone's going to watch, I don't think anyone's going to watch an interview by Lil D, who's done 30 years in prison, and say, I want to do that. That's what I want to do. I want to do 30 years in prison. I don't think, Mob James, who was one of the main blood members, who kind of brought all the Bloods to death row, whose brother got killed. And he's literally crying in the interview, talking about reliving the pain of losing his own brother to an organization that he brought his brother to, that he takes responsibility for, and having his mother say, I wish it was you instead of Buntry.
Wow.
And literally bawling and crying in this interview. I don't think anyone says, yeah, that's what I want to do. And this is what I try to do. Every interview with a new person is really essentially like a biopic, a documentary on that person, on their life, the good, the bad, the wins, the losses. And, it's their life and it's their story. And the negative parts aren't glamorized. And I focus on the hard parts and the loss and so forth. And, my DMs are flooded with people that say, yo, like, I stopped doing certain things because of this interview. And this person you interviewed, like, it made me change my life in this way and so forth.
We're talking with Vlad, CEO of VladTV.com. Vlad, no last name. Vlad Johnson.
Lyubovny.
Lyubovny?
Lyubovny.
Lyubovny.
Yeah.
Lyubovny.
Vladislav Lyubovny.
Vladislav. It's not even Vladimir. It's Vladislav.
No, Vlad. Well, I got shortened to Vlad,
Okay.
but my full name is Vladislav.
Vladislav Lyubovny.
Lyubovny.
Lyubovny. Okay, you just keep saying. I butcher everyone's name. It's an equal opportunity butcher. All right, so break down the business.
Mm-hmm.
It's Thrive Thursday. Vlad is here. How does you got advertising? But what's the licensing like? What is how does that work on YouTube for creators?
Well, I own everything. Everything I shoot, I own. A person sits down with me. They sign a release form. We film them. We own that content. And we put it out through YouTube, and YouTube brings the advertising. So my only job, like, I don't have an ad team or anything else like that.
It's all through Google AdSense.
It's all through Google. I'm also partnered with Complex, so they bring a chunk of advertising as well.
So you get a higher rate than normal people.
Yeah,
is that based on your numbers or based on the relationship? Is that a relationship people can negotiate, or is that just based sheerly on numbers?
It's really just based on the numbers. I think we did close to 80 million views last month on YouTube.
Wow.
So we have a big quantity. So I'm sure at certain levels, the bigger you get, the more advertisers you approach. But really, the business model is to put out as much content as we can at the level of quality that we try to maintain. And as those videos get out and people start to view those videos, YouTube kind of does its job by showing videos that are related to what other things that people are watching, which in turn brings more views and brings more people. And then old videos start to spark off, and we try to cross-reference a lot of our content and so forth. And we really don't license any of our stuff. We get offers almost every week to license this or that, and we always turn everybody
like
down.
Netflix or
whatever,
whomever, right?
Documentaries.
So why don't
TV
you do
shows.
that?
Because I've always felt that the key to my business is ownership. When you look at,
Can you repeat that, please, sir?
The key to my business is ownership.
Thank you.
When you look at the people that become wealthy over time, it's not because they keep doing gigs and keep getting nice checks. I mean, that's nice as well. But the people that own different types of property, whether it's physical property or intellectual property, that property can continue to be monetized year after year, decade after decade. And it kind of builds on itself like a compounding interest. And by owning everything, that's how we're able to kind of build the company out. And we just figured, what's the point of licensing something to someone, and now they could run with it, and they only give us a little fixed, like a check,
right?
One time
check. That's not good enough, huh, Vlad?
One-time check is not good enough.
So what Disney did wasn't gangster; it was smart.
Yeah, very much so.
Give me back all my stuff.
Yeah,
I love it. Last question, and we're talking with Vlad, of course, Vlad TV. You can check him out on YouTube as well. The culture vulture.
Yeah.
Label that you get hit with a lot.
Every day.
Yes. You don't care.
Not really. No.
No, right.
Not at all, actually.
What does that mean to you, though? Do you understand it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So why don't you care about it?
Well, I take a very humble, stance in terms of what I do. One of the, Lord Jamar, who's a regular guest on my show, he feels that white people are guests in the house of hip hop. And I've always actually felt the same way, even before, me and him had these conversations online, is that I wake up every morning feeling very lucky that a white Russian immigrant kid could, work in hip hop and talk to my idols for a living and be immersed into the culture and be friends with certain people and so forth and make a living out of this and feed my family and have a large staff that all depend on me and so forth. That I don't just take it for granted and feel like, well, I deserve this because I've been doing this for so long. I just feel very lucky, that I get to do this for a living as opposed to something that I hate to do every day, which a lot of people have to go through. So, I do feel like a guest, and I try to be respectful as a guest. So, not being black, I understand that certain people are going to look at me and call me a culture vulture, and that's fine. I have no issues with that.
Okay, good answer. Well, listen, I think this should be the beginning of a conversation that we should continue to have. And I'm impressed with what you've built. And I think there's a model and a blueprint for success that somebody out there can glean something from and make something
people
happen.
Other people have, like Say Cheese TV. They used the Vlad TV model, and he became, Sean Cotton became successful with it. No Jumper became successful with it. They based on what they did on Vlad TV. And this is something they've discussed when I've interviewed them on my platform. So it's one of those things. People run with the blueprint and done very well with it.
Okay. All right. What's the criteria for being on your platform?
Well, you either have to have a phenomenal story, like the Central Park Five, which we interviewed 2 years ago.
The Exonerated Five.
The Exonerated Five, yeah, as they're now known. Or you have to be an artist with a real big, tremendous buzz and someone that's looking, I feel will make an impact for years to come. Or, just someone important in the world of acting or the world of sports or so forth.
Is there someone that you wanted on your platform that told you no, or somebody that you want to interview that you haven't?
Lots of people.
Give me one. Give me your the one that's got away or the one that you haven't gotten yet.
We've never gotten Obama.
Okay.
We've never gotten Jay-Z. We've never gotten Nas. I'm trying to think who else.
Okay, that's good. That's the
Yeah,
three. That's three. That's good.
I could keep going.
Okay.
There's lots of people I still want. I feel like I should get everybody.
Well, there you go. It's out there in the universe. Let's see
Yeah.
what comes back. Vlad, thanks for being here. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate your time. CEO Vlad TV on YouTube. Check him out, and you can check him out at DJ Vlad on the Twitters and